good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining our latest installment in our Workday AMS webinar series. As Abby said, for any of those that are interested in seeing some of the prior webinars, please visit our website at avaap.com under the Workday AMS section to get access to those as well. In today's webinar, we're going to be covering the Workday Benefits Enrollment user interface redesign. But before that, by way of introduction, my name is Mark Bonachea. I am the Workday AMS practice lead here at Avaap. My team, the AMS, or the Application Management Services team, we're responsible for all of the live Workday customers that Avaap currently supports. We've helped about 28 customers this year across a number of different services, including things like updates and releases, diagnostic and optimization, enhancement projects, and our lifeline day-to-day support services. In addition to that, I've been certified in Workday for the last 10 years, and I've been with Avaap for the last 2 years. Let me give you a quick introduction of Avaap, and then we can get started. Avaap was actually founded in 2006, and we have approximately 600 consultants worldwide. We've got offices all across North America, EMEA, and Asia Pac. We've serviced well over 300 customers since our inception and across various platforms and ERP softwares, including Workday and Infor as well. We also service a wide range of industries, including healthcare, education, government, and the commercial space. Within the Workday ecosystem, we are considered a Workday boutique partner, and we've been certified and serving our Workday customers for the last 5 years. We proudly have all 3 badges in the Workday certifications, including being an advisory partner, an AMS partner, and of course a services or deployment partner, if you will. All right, let's take a quick look at the agenda for today's webinar. And so we're going to be, first off, kicking it off by reviewing the Workday user interface and some of the changes that are coming as part of the 2020 Release 2. We're also going to move into helping you understand what are some of the preparation that you and your organization can do to get ready for those changes, and also help you understand what are some of the decisions you need to make as part of going live with the new user interface. And then last but not least, we'll talk a little bit about open enrollment planning and what are some of the tips and tricks that we have for you in order to complete that successfully. We'll end up closing with the question and answer section. So as Abby said, please feel free to submit those questions as you see fit. And now, without further ado, let's go ahead and meet the presenters for today. Renee, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate the intro there. I am a senior consultant with Avaap in the Workday practice on Mark's AMS team, working on a variety of Workday projects. Happy to be here to talk about the benefits, the new user interface. In addition to my Workday certification, I have 2 senior HR certifications via SHRM and HRCI, and bring 25+ years of experience in HR and benefits. And Lisa, you're up next.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I am Lisa Litke. I've been with Avaap for about 10.5 years now. I am a principal consultant in the Workday practice. I am PMP certified, and I am currently working with a large public sector client on Workday who has been running benefits for about 2 to 2.5 years now. All right, Mayanne.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mayanne de Guzman. I have been with Avaap for almost 9 years. I have over 20 years of system implementation experience, and I'm certified in HCM and benefits and been in the Workday ecosystem for 4 years. Part of the Workday practice, I focus on our system implementation. For our webinar today, I will be providing a high-level overview of the Workday Benefits redesigned enrollment workflow on desktop. As we all know, Workday has been working towards a consistent desktop and mobile user experience. In September 2019, as part of the Workday 33 rollout, Workday introduced new Open Enrollment user interface. It was only available for Open Enrollment, and it was an automatic opt-in feature. Customers have had an option to not use the new UI by choosing to continue to use Workday's 32 Open Enrollment UI from HCM tenant setting. At the same time, Workday said the new user experience for benefits would come out for live events in 2020. Now the anticipated release of the new UI for live events will be released in production as part of the 2020 R2 on September 12th. For current customers who are already live in Workday, this new feature was already deployed in your preview tenant on June 27th. And recently, your preview tenant was refreshed with a copy of your production tenant. Similar to how the initial enhancement was rolled out last year, this is an automatic opt-in feature. If customers don't want to use the new UI, they must opt out, and we will review how to do that on the next slide. Workday is also planning to retire the current Workday 32 UI on desktop as part of the 2021 Release 1, which is scheduled on March 12, 2021. Currently, the new UI is available in production in Sandbox for Open Enrollment only. As I have mentioned, this was made available as part of the Workday 33 release last year. Workday delivered this functionality in preparation of providing a more consistent experience between mobile applications and browsers. This enhancement allows employee and retirees to complete open enrollment, make changes, and review enrollment more efficiently using Workday on any device. By default, the new UI is active unless customers opt out in HCM tenant settings under benefits. So here is where you can see that particular checkbox. As part of Workday 2020 Release 2, the updated design for benefits enrollment workflow will be available for all types of enrollment events. So this can be anything that you had set up in your current production system, or if you're in the process of implementation, any benefit event types that you have defined and provided to your implementation partner. This will be new hire events and any of your qualifying life events when it comes to birth and adoption, marriage, or divorce. The target release to production is September 12th, which is next month. Like with Open Enrollment UI, the control of the UI is through HCM tenant setting. And this is what we have on the slide right here. And notice how the label will actually change. Customer must make the tenant setting when the tenant comes out after the release on 9/12 if you do not want to use the new UI. A single setting controls for both Open Enrollment and all other enrollment event types. So just not the label changing. If you then don't opt out, that means you are actually deploying the new design as part of your day-to-day benefits enrollment for any of your employees and retirees, including Open Enrollment. The other thing we had provided on the slide is a thread to the community. There's actually great conversations that started since the initial release. In fact, some of the enhancements that will be rolled out as part of the September release are also some fixes that was kind of compiled from the brainstorm ideas from various customers. This is now the new, if you have opt out of the 2020 release, then this is what you currently are using in your production tenant. And once again, to opt out of the new feature, you would then need to mark that checkbox under your HCM tenant setting. If you then decide to adopt this new feature, what you would notice is now it's the enhanced benefits enrollment experience for your employees, where it's a tile layout, and each benefit coverage type that you had set up in your tenant is its own tile. You have the option to control based on the available Workday icons on what you would like to use for each of the benefit coverage type. I also would like to point out that there is a change on the label when it comes to manage versus enroll. If the employee is retiree, is not currently enrolled in a coverage type, the hyperlink will actually say enroll, just like this example right here. And if the employee or retiree is currently enrolled, then it will have the label of manage. When I go into the tenant, I will also show you there is another label that you will be able to display, which will say view, and that will be based on how you have set up the enrollment event rule. If you had set it to no changes allowed, then this hyperlink will actually also say view instead of manage or enroll. Okay. This is where the employee or the retiree can enroll in a plan, waive a plan. So if they would like, they click on manage or enroll, this will actually be the page shot that will display next, and it will display all the benefit plans that you had configured for a specific coverage type, but of course, also based on your eligibility rules that you had set up for your plans. If I'm the employee who logged in, then I would only then see the plans that I am eligible to participate. Once I then make a decision if I want to enroll in that particular plan, it will then display dependents, and the dependents that will display once again will be based on the eligibility that you had set up for the particular plan that the employee had selected. So bottom line, it's still the same functionality when it comes to your configuration, how it actually combines what you've set up on your configuration, what event types, your enrollment event rules, and also, of course, what you had set up as far as your dependent eligibility rules. When I then make my election for the dependents and I decide I would like to then enroll a new dependent as part of this qualifying life event, notice how it will also then give you the various pages to be able to add your dependents. As far as the add dependent UI, there's not much change to it. And then the last thing that I would like to point out is that if an employee adds a dependent and they do not provide the social security number, the same exact feature is still available, wherein it's not required for our employees or retirees to provide that dependent social security number. However, it's actually going to ask the employee or the retiree to provide a reason, or maybe they just forgot to do it. So the specific feature and functionality is still there. So now, just want to jump into the tenant and show you some of the settings. So just like I mentioned, if you go to your benefit coverage type, you will then be able to select the icon that you would like to use under the new design for the user interface. I also wanted to show you guys just from the enrollment instruction, it's still the same from a configuration, nothing really changed. However, you may want to then start reviewing it if you want to adopt the new UI as far as the enrollment, because there might just be slight changes to how you would like to now guide your employees or retirees in completing that benefit election. And the one thing I still want to show you guys, just to make sure I have it up from a tenant setting perspective. I'm trying to just bring this over. So this is what I wanted to show you. This is the edit tenant setup for HCM under the benefits section. This is where you would see that. And of course, right now we are going to use this feature in our demo tenant. Next thing I want to show you guys is just from a user experience. I am then logged in as an employee. If I would like to initiate a change, I would still go to my benefits worklet. And I will go to change. Same exact thing, slight changes that you would notice. There are certain verbiage or labels that's been updated as part of this release. And once again, some of this enhancement that Workday had rolled out are also based on some of the feedback from other customers through the brainstorm within this feature. What you're seeing here as an option is based on your configuration. Once again, when you define the benefit event types, is this a worker selectable? And those are the ones that will display. So you might have more. So the way this may be laid out on this page will be different depending on the number of your worker selectable benefit event types. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to select birth and adoption. I'm going to make it as of today. And then the same exact thing, I can still do the attachment. And of course, for demo purposes, I did not make the documentation required because I just wanted to jump right in and show you guys all this nice feature. So this is the change. If you would like to change some verbiage under the Let's Get Started, you can explore that using the business process maintain help text, and you can revisit how you would like to display that. So then now the one subtle difference, if you are using tobacco questionnaire, it actually gets presented as its own question, right? And I believe there's some Workday community brainstorm going out there, because if they actually go back in, for example, for open enrollment, they still get the tobacco question, even though they had answered it previously. So I will just say continue. And this is what I was saying, that you can check the BP and see if you would like to change and enhance what's out there for the verbiage. And I wanted to just go in and show you guys, this is what I was referring to initially. Same subtle difference. It's now called projected total cost, right? Because it hasn't been finalized, so it's just projected at this point. If I then would like to manage, meaning I'm currently enrolled versus I am not enrolled right now. If you have cross-plan validation set up, of course, it will still work. And then the other thing I wanted to show you is the view. So if you have that enrollment event rule set up for this specific coverage type to no changes allowed, it will then change the label to view. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to Lisa, who will then cover how your organization can prepare for the new user interface. Lisa?
Great. Thank you, Mayanne, for giving us the review. As Mayanne said, I'm going to spend some time with you talking about how to prepare your organization. Before we jump into that, though, Abby is going to post a poll question that you should see so we can get a feel for how many of you have started to actually look at the new UI. So if you guys could answer that question, and we will jump into, while you're answering, into the next slide. Okay, so to prepare your organization, we recommend that customers develop an implementation plan, which I know may sound daunting. But on the next couple of slides, we're going to talk through the components of the implementation plan, and we'll hopefully break it down into manageable components. So we're going to talk about what you need to include or consider in your plan. we're going to talk about some things to consider in determining the right go-live date for your organization, developing a test plan for the new UI, reviewing your online enrollment instructions, which Mayanne touched on a little bit, developing a change management plan. How do you prepare your organization? So let's start by talking about the best time for your organization to implement the new UI. So the timing will depend on whether you're already live or are you still in implementation mode. If you're going live soon, you are going to want to work very closely with your implementation partner to perform a risk assessment. You're going to need to identify the best approach for your organization based on where you are in your implementation timeline. Because if you're close to go live, the timing of implementing may cause you to have to rework or retest already completed work, which your timeline may or may not be able to absorb. If you're already live, one consideration would be, did your organization use the new user interface for your last open enrollment when it became available last year? If you did, and you want to provide continuity for your users, you will need to implement the new user interface for life events by the dates of your open enrollment this year. If you did not use the new open enrollment interface for your last OE, you'll just need to consider really all the tasks in the implementation plan after we, kind of get through everything in conjunction with what is your implementation or your open enrollment timeframe. You're going to have to look at how long is it going to take your organization to complete the tasks on the implementation plan. Can you complete them by your open enrollment date? Does your organization have a compelling need or desire to use the new UI right now? Or can you wait to use it until closer to March of 2021, or at least after the first of the year when the old UI design will be retired? This would allow you to have a slower or delayed implementation plan. So let's now talk about testing the new UI. So Mayanne, if you will go to the next slide. So every customer is different, and your organization needs to test the new UI with your individual configuration. Right, so Mayanne shared the community thread that's out there, which is a great place to see what your peers are saying about their testing. But your implementation plan and your testing tasks need to be unique to you. So along with identifying what those testing tasks are, you'll need to identify who in your organization will do the testing. I recommend that you develop a test matrix that identifies your test scenarios and cases. I'm seeing a chat. So Mayanne, did you advance the slide? I'm not seeing it advanced. And I saw a chat to that.
I did, unless there's a delay. I have the planning for the user interface slide.
Right, we should be on slide 17. Is that 17? Develop a testing plan. There we go, perfect, okay. All right, so I recommend developing a test matrix that identifies your test scenarios and cases and based on your configuration. And you can build this out in Excel. You don't need a fancy tool to do this. And you will putting it all in a test matrix really allows you to manage and track the testing status and identify test cases that may potentially need retesting. So building the test matrix, it does take some time, but it is a reusable asset. So when you have future testing needs arise, you can pull it out, dust it off, make some tweaks if necessary, and you don't have to start from scratch building it out again. To identify the scenarios and cases that you would put into your test matrix, think about your benefit event types. which ones are the same, which ones are different, your enrollment event rules. Do you have benefit events with unique enrollment event rules? If yes, you should definitely have scenarios that test or validate that they're working correctly. Think about your cross-plan validation rules. Develop scenarios that test or validate that these rules are working correctly. And then think about any custom validation rules that you might have in your change benefits BP that maybe are something about the event dates or who can initiate events. And again, everyone's unique, so you're going to have to think through your unique configuration to identify what are the scenarios and the cases that you need to test. So that's what you would put in your test matrix. Once it's built, you'll assign out the test cases to your testers, and then you, in the matrix, can track the status of each case as a pass or a fail. For fails, you're going to want to determine if the fail was really an internal issue or is it a UI issue. So one good way to do that is you can either jump over to Sandbox and test the same scenario under the old UI, or temporarily turn off the new UI in preview and you can retest it there. The tenant setting is a toggle switch, so you can easily switch back and forth in the preview tenant by the tenant setting. So configuration, right, that would work in your current UI but is working differently in the new UI would warrant opening a Workday case. And then when Workday would either issue a fix or a workaround, you can go back to your test matrix and identify which test cases need a retest. So we also recommend that you include tasks in that implementation plan to review all your online enrollment instructions and identify if any changes or updates are required. The new enrollment flow may make some updates required to your instructions. And honestly, it could be something as simple as the placement of the instructions on the page, right? In the old or current UI, the instructions are at the top of the page, and now the instructions display on the right-hand side of the page. So you could, simply have something in your instructions that says see below, and now it may need to say see on the left. And I know there's been discussion out on the community thread about there's not an option right now to define your online enrollment instructions by coverage type. So in the new UI, the same instructions will appear on multiple kind of tiles or drill downs. So for example, you define your healthcare election instructions. Well, now there's a separate tile, right, for medical, prescription, dental. So you're going to see those exact same instructions on all three of those on a drill down. So one option to get around this is to put section titles maybe with bold or underlines in those healthcare election instructions. So it's easy for the user to see when they go in, oh, these are my medical instructions or these are my dental instructions, if you have unique instructions for those sections. Also think about whether adding instructions and help text into your change benefits BP would be helpful for your users. Doing this is going to be specific to your change benefits BP. To get those instructions or help text to show up on the initial change benefits page, you'll want to put those instructions, the help text on the initiation step in your BP. And if you wanted the instructions or the help text to show up at the point that somebody goes to enter their elections, you would want to attach those help texts onto the change benefit election step in your change benefits BP. And then your users will see that on the Let's Get Started page when they go in to make their elections. Okay, next slide, Mayanne. So now let's talk about preparing your users for the change. So you're going to want to include a change management plan in your overall implementation plan for this. And your change management plan really focuses on what's required to garner the user adoption, right? What communication is needed? What training is required, if any? Do you need new or updated training materials or job aids or reference guides? So again, every organization's user base is different. So think about your user base. So this is going to include your employees, retirees, if you have retirees on for benefits, your benefit support personnel, third-party administrators if you use them, and ask yourself, what will each user type need to get familiar with the change and be able to use the new UI? You know, are your users self-sufficient, or do they maybe need a little more hand-holding? And the answers to those questions, you know, who's the user base and kind of what each type needs, they'll guide you in deciding, do you need to do training, or can you really provide a job aid? What communications are required? Is it one communication, or do you need multiple communications? When should these communications go out? And think about using a Workday homepage announcement to assist in your communication plan. With this, you can make an announcement, you can provide links to videos or supporting materials, and I think Renee is going to show us where that is if for those not familiar with using the homepage announcements in the next couple slides when we talk about open enrollment. Or if we've already discussed, can you communicate the new UI via the help text on the change benefits BP? Is that the right place to communicate it at the point that somebody would initiate a qualifying life event? And then you need to think about all your current training materials and job aids, right? If they have screenshots in them, most likely you're going to have to go through and update those for any that have the screenshots of initiating a benefit event or making the election changes. And then the steps that you may have in that job aid or training material based on the new enrollment flow. What types of changes do you maybe need to make to that based on the flow? So overall, I know it's a lot to think about, but I think it's manageable if you break it down into the pieces that we talked about and kind of work through each part of the plan and then see kind of what your overall picture looks like in guiding you towards when is the right time to implement it and how to implement it. So let me check here on. So Abby, do we have some questions that we want to answer right now based on maybe the volume of questions that are coming in?
Sure, we do have a couple of questions. So first question is, I'm just going to go in order that they came in. When's the latest that you could implement the new UI?
So right now, Workday is saying the latest will be they're going to retire it in 2021 R1, which has a March 12th of 2021 date.
Okay, next question. Will this affect integrations with insurance vendors?
It is not supposed to affect integrations with insurance vendors, no. It is strictly the user interface.
Okay. We do not currently use the benefits interface. We use a third-party administrator who manages 100% of our enrollment events, new hires, family status changes, annual enrollment, and then they feed the enrollment into our pay input of Workday, so all we see is the deduction code and the per pay cost. The question is, if we were to use the Workday Benefits interface, can we still use the third party to manage our enrollments and just have them feed into the benefits interface and have our interface be view only for all events, i.e. all changes get made at the third party and we just manage the payroll deductions?
Mayanne, I think, can you join on this one? I think you have some third-party administrator experience.
Sure. So that's very interesting. You may want to have a conversation with your third-party vendor. In my experience with who I've assisted so far with implementation, sometimes you may have a third-party vendor that will not give you your data. So before you go into that thought process, you may want to double check your current contracts if that is allowed for them to share with you. But I always say, and I know there are people on the attendees that know me, anything is possible. So I guess the question is, if you already have Workday, just wondering why you are still using a third-party vendor instead of truly enhancing your investment within the Workday ecosystem. Because the other model you can revisit is that if you do not have enough staff to support, then maybe your third-party vendor can use Workday as the system of record, so then you get that delivered cross-touch point integration, not just from the payroll processing, but everything that Workday has delivered within HCM. So I know it's not a straight answer because there's so many factors you need to consider, but hopefully that kind of give you some perspective.
Thank you. We'll jump into the next section of the presentation, and if there are other questions, please feel free to send them in and we'll answer them at the end of the session.
Okay, the only other thing I was going to jump in and share with everyone is you guys answered the poll, and I don't know if Abby, they could see the poll results. So out of the people on the call today, 73% of you have not started to look at the new UI yet, and 27% of you have. So the majority have not started to look at it yet. Okay, so I think Renee is going to jump in and start us off with some open enrollment planning.
Yeah, thank you, Mayanne and Lisa. That was amazing to learn about that. I wanted to just take a couple of minutes and back up and get to some fundamentals that have to take place at every organization before you use either user interface. These things need to be accomplished before you can even get to the point of having people do open enrollment. So the fall is the busiest time. Most or the bulk of organizations have fall open enrollment for January 1 effective date. With the current situation with COVID and all of the hoops and loops we're jumping through in order to maintain business these days, you might be a little behind. For you veteran benefits people out there, this might be a little bit redundant, so we're going to keep it short. But for those that would like an overview or are new to benefits administration, we just wanted to call out a couple of high-level things that need to take place now if you're going to go into open enrollment in the fall. So costs are rising. Healthcare costs have been rising for 20+ years, just about in a row. That's not likely to change with the current circumstances that we're in. So controlling costs for you, for your organization and your employees is going to be top of mind. Work with your benefits broker, work with your third-party administrator if you have those. If you're a smaller organization and you work directly with providers or carriers, any of those groups, you're going to want to talk to them about what your plan costs are, what your experience was from the prior year. This is the time when you're going to add or eliminate benefits that people want or people aren't using, or to change plans. Obviously, you can change deductions up and down, out-of-pocket maximums, copays, prescriptions to reduce the cost to yourself and to the employees. Balancing that with what employees want or can afford is sometimes a tight line to walk. So again, work with your partners to determine what your plans are going to look like. And then obviously, if costs are soaring, going to market to get other carriers to bid or quote you on offering the benefits to your employees. Not only does that open up an opportunity to possibly switch vendors, which can be painful, but in the end can be helpful. It puts current providers, puts them on, you know, under the microscope and pressures them to try to give you the best rates. So let's go to the next slide, Mayanne, and we'll talk about, you know, time frames and some requirements that have to be done. And Workday, if you're in Workday Benefits, you can do almost all of this inside there. And we'll hit that point that Lisa made in just a minute about utilizing the Workday tools. So you want to try to make final decisions about all that plan stuff at least 2 to 3 months before your open enrollment. So we're pretty much there at this point if you have a fall time frame. You got to organize and carry out any integration of carriers that might be changing. If your plan changes, sometimes that causes an integration change as well. Integrations, for you guys probably know, are notoriously difficult and complex, can be. So give yourself plenty of time to get the Workday and the carriers aligned. And then preparing communication materials for open enrollment for your employees. What's most important to them, of course, is their costs and what kind of coverage they have. And don't forget giving them something that they can print out or look at online, or a handout, depending on your size, is important for employees, because many of them are sharing this with spouses, comparing plans between, you know, with your organization versus their spouse's coverage, or even comparing plans if you have multiple plans inside your organization. Having some sort of written plan document or benefits booklet is helpful, so employees can look at the whole offering or menu of options you have for them. But even beyond that, we all have requirements under federal guidelines. ERISA requires a summary plan description to be sent out once a year. Open enrollment is typically when you do that, or to give a summary plan description to new enrollees. Also required under the Affordable Care Act is the summary of benefits coverage. I find that employees actually like to look at this because it's similar to an SPD, but a little bit different. But it summarizes pretty easily and in plain language what kind of coverage that they have. So same as SPDs, SBCs have to be put out once a year, and they also need to be given to employees who have newly enrolled in the coverage. And then usually in the back of your benefits booklet or wherever you're keeping material for employees, there's other annual or new employee disclosures that are required around the Affordable Care Act, COBRA, ERISA, FMLA, GINA, HIPAA, Medicare Part D, and the Women's Health and Cancer Rights Act. There's probably a couple more. Those are the main ones. We just wanted to remind people that list has to go out. And then finally, a thought about, especially if you're going to be using the new user interface, are you going to have, you know, written communications with some job aids, changes to your coverage, or are you big enough that you need a benefits meeting that you record and then put it out for people? Either way, with the user interface and with any benefits changes or cost changes you have, people are going to want to be able to go back and reference that. So let's go to the next slide, Mayanne, and we'll just take a minute and think about you know, how Workday can help us. So Workday provides a checklist for configuration, and there's a link there. It's a very thorough, thoughtful list. It identifies all the configuration items you should review for changes, testing the changes, and initiating open enrollment, which Lisa's going to round out our conversation on in just a minute. So the way that you do homepage announcements, as she mentioned a couple of minutes ago, is by going in Workday to configure announcements, and then to dashboard, and then to the home option, which is the home screen, the landing page where employees go when they first log in. It's a great place to put information. You have the ability to link text, videos, job aids, supporting documentation, and even link to the open enrollment event on that page. So it's quite flexible, functional. You can put all kinds of things on there. You can load custom icons even, so keep that in mind. Also, you can configure condition rules to control what's displaying for whom on this page. So utilize this if you're using Workday Benefits or you're planning to. Please remember to use the tools that you have at your disposal. So with that fundamental list that we talked about and where to get this checklist and some things you can do on the home page, let's turn it over to Lisa for the final section where we talk about actually initiating open enrollment.
All right, thanks, Renee. Yeah, so we're not going to show vast Workday open enrollment like management screens, but we want to kind of, for those that are new to the Workday open enrollment, we want to give you a little bit here so you can kind of see how it works and how it leads into the open enrollment user interface, and that we're going to see the same interface there that we saw that Mayanne showed us. So for those that are new, you'll initiate, this is what the Initiate Open Enrollment page looks like in Workday. And so on this page, you'll see that you initiate your open enrollment by benefit group, but you can open multiple benefit groups at a time. You'll specify how long your open enrollment will stay open by the open until date, and then you'll specify what is your open enrollment event date. So in this example, we've got a 1/1/21. And then if we go to the next slide, then, Workday has a couple screens where you can really kind of manage the initiation process, watch the process until you'll eventually get to having employee enrollment accounts over on that right-hand side of the page, where you'll see all of your events have been opened and kind of what the status of them are. And then we'll get to like the user interface on the next slide, and we'll see here, it looks identical to what Mayanne showed us. So this is for those that did not use the new open enrollment interface last fall. This is what it looked like. So it does look identical, except that it's for the open enrollment event, which we can see in the top blue bar, but it looks identical to what Mayanne just demoed for us in terms of the qualifying life events. So that's pretty much what we've got. I'm thinking hopefully we've got a bunch of questions. Why don't we open it back up for questions, since we have a lot of folks that this is all brand new for. And Mayanne and Renee and I will try and answer your questions for you.
Thank you. So we had a couple of questions come in. If we turn the new user interface on now, is it an all or nothing option for us? Do we have to use it for life enrollment or life events and open enrollment? Both?
Yes, the answer is yes. It is an all or nothing. So if you turn it on, you will have to use it you turn it on for open enrollment, you're going to have to use it for the life events, or vice versa. If you turn it on for life events, it will be on for your open enrollment. And I think another really important thing is, as Mayanne shared, when this release goes into production on Saturday, September 12th, the new user interface is on by default. So if you have self-service turned on for benefits for folks, you'll really want to, and you don't want to use the new UI, you'll really want to jump in there that Saturday and get it shut off before somebody potentially goes in, and because they will see the new UI as soon as your tenant gets released on Saturday, September 12th.
Thank you. Another question is, I had to join late. How do we see the new UI? Is it in the preview tenant already?
Yes.
Yes, it went in on, I think, June 27th. It went in early. It went in a little bit before all the full preview release went out. I believe it was June 27th, that Saturday. And I do think Workday is putting fixes out to it from what we've seen and can see on the threads. And I think based on, you know, clients, I know the client I'm working with, they are actively, if there are issues, addressing them through fixes or workarounds.
Great, thank you. Our next question is the 2021 OE checklist out?
So I just checked, it still is from last year. However, you can actually look at that. Probably the only thing is the opt-out label that we had showed you earlier. However, when it comes to the actual steps that Workday recommends as far as reviewing your current configuration, such as your benefit eligibility rules based on all your plan changes, it kind of walks you through that process already. So feel free to download it. You don't have to wait till the 2021 OE checklist is out if this is your first time. It kind of gives you an idea of what you need to go through thought process, especially in reviewing your configuration based on what's changing for your 2021 plan year.
And there was a question about whether or not the PowerPoint and corresponding documents will be out. You will receive an on-demand version of today's webinar in your email inbox in the next 2 business days. However, we will not be distributing today's slides. So if you are on the call, you will definitely get a copy of the on-demand presentation, and it will also be live on avaap.com. So thank you to everyone who joined us today. We really appreciate all of the questions, and I know our team appreciated all of the questions, and hopefully you learned something from today. If you want to talk more about today or about the Workday release or how our AMS team can help your organization get the most out of your Workday investment, send us an email at info@avaap.com, and we can definitely help you. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your week.